Good morning, everyone. This is Jeffy Kennedy. Also writing is Jennifer K. Lambert, author of epic fantasy romance. I'm here with my first cup of coffee, which is delicious. Today is, say it with me, people, it is Friday. Woohoo! May 29th, last day of May. I'm not going to say that time flies. I'm going to stop saying that, but time's going by fast. Probably not any better. I am trying to minimize clanking of the coffee cup because I can like see the sound spike. So I brought in this great little coaster. Isn't that pretty? I brought these from my mom's house. Really nice Tucson landscape with the saguaro. Uh, it's still kind of ceramic, so it might be still kind of clanky, but I'm trying. So thank you all for the kind comments about reading from Wednesday's podcast. I'm all wibbly wobbly, timey wimey on podcasts these days. Thank you all for being patient with me on this. Uh, yeah, it's been nice for me to have like this weird schedule and just be kicking back, ratcheting back. Uh, I was talking with a friend of mine. I'm switching topics now. I'm sorry. I'll come back to reading. But I was talking with a friend of mine about living with someone who has, I want to say, a chronic disease or who has problems. Uh, with my partner having Parkinson's disease, he can be very slow on doing things, and it requires this effort of patience, right? To wait for him to do things. And it's one thing to know that the person that they can't do it, right? My friend has a partner who has severe ADHD and never leaves for anything on time, and it produces anxiety, right? um, Her partner will like spend all this time doing everything but what they need to do in order to leave for at the time they said they were going to leave for an important thing. And it produces this tension in us. And it's like you can understand that someone has a disease and be compassionate, exercise your compassion to the utmost, exercise your patience to the utmost. And David will accuse me of being impatient. He's actually accused me of being impatient our entire relationship, but now it's worse. That's the other thing about chronic disease or various other problems like that, is that it just seems to exacerbate. Why does it exacerbate the worst things instead of like making the good qualities better? It's like this dramatic unfairness on the part of nature. But yeah, so if you like, but you can't change your emotional response, right? And I'm learning that, to own my emotional responses, right? I mention I'm in therapy now. It's like I feel what I feel, and having to pretend to feel something other than what I feel is difficult, right? So, it's like I don't want to feel impatient. It's not like I'm deliberately. In fact, I would love to not feel impatient. I would love to not have that emotion. I would love not to have that strumming of the nerves of the we're going to miss our flight, kind of thing. Um, but it's you can't not feel the thing, right? And then when the people around you expect you instead to pretend that you don't feel it, it's like, oh, I'm not actually impatient, I'm not looking at the time ticking away. It's hard. And I guess that's all we can do, is acknowledge that it's hard. So if you have this, I see you. And, a little fist bump of solidarity there. Uh, I think I hadn't talked about. In fact, I'm pretty sure I did not talk about our trip up for our grandson's graduation, which was um, it was very nice. It was a mixed bag. There were lovely moments. We got to give our grandson money, the grandparents' job. He's going off to Penn State, so he will need it, and we also gave him a ring of David's, a ring I had given him a long time ago that no longer fits his hands. And David's getting rid of a lot of his stuff anyway. So we gave Tobiah this ring, and it's a beautiful amethyst ring. And it was funny because he asked me how old it is. And which of course to an 18-year-old, this is an important question. And I had to think, and I said, well, it's somewhere around 30 years old. And he was like, oh. And I was like, damn, is that making it like an antique in his eyes? Because I vividly remember having the jeweler make this ring. But it looks great on our grandson. He is, has been wearing it like the whole time I saw him. He had the ring on, and it looked great on him, and it was nice to see him wearing his grandfather's ring. And we got to see our kids, our adult children, my stepdaughter and stepson, and our granddaughter and other grandsons. And we got to see David's sister and her husband, and a lot of other family like that. And it was really nice. It was a good time. Um, but there were also difficulties. And one of the upshots of this whole thing is we have decided um, that David simply can't travel anymore. It's just too hard on him. Um, and he was the one who came out with that. And I did everything. This was drive. We drove up to Denver, which is about 5.5, 6 hours, depends on traffic. You know, and we stayed in a nice hotel that should have been comfortable, um, but wasn't. And a lot of it was the stress and anxiety on him that just make the Parkinson's symptoms worse, uh, and generally make him miserable, which in turn makes me miserable. But finally, David said that he felt like he just can't travel anymore, that it's too hard on him to be away from home. So that's a good realization to have. For those of you newish to the podcast, he's 16 years into the Parkinson's diagnosis. So yeah, it's to be expected. It's not great, but it's to be expected. I'm already thinking about what am I going to do for Christmas with my mom in Tucson and me here with David unable to travel. But hey, we'll cross that bridge 7 months from now. Um, Tra-la, tra-lay, right? So anyway, that was a good realization to have, and we can just plan around that now. So I was trying to think of what got me onto that. It was just I guess the anxiety, the trying to master your own response to someone else's struggles with a chronic disease, and how do you handle that? And my therapist, did I mention I'm in therapy? I feel like I need a hashtag. Is she just says back to me, it's really hard. It's just hard. And yeah, there it is then, right? But it does help to acknowledge when a thing is hard. I know I often talk about the book by the Nagoski sisters, Breaking the Stress Cycle. That one thing really stuck with me from that book is that a lot of stress comes from when we think something will be easy and we underestimate that, and we and then when it turns out not to be easy, we get frustrated with ourselves and get upset that it's not as easy as we want it to be. But that if we go into something acknowledging that it's going to be really hard or take a long time, that we become less stressed about it because we know it's going to be hard. And maybe that's what helps about acknowledging that something is hard. Okay, so let's talk about books and reading, because I have been thinking about that more since all of the really nice comments on the podcast the other day, where I talked about the sort of the competitiveness in the social media world, in particular, book talk and bookstagram, on how many books you read a year. And a couple of people sent me messages, commented or personal, saying that this is something they needed to hear. And I think, yeah, we do need to hear it, because it's all tied together with this same thing, right? About like monetizing our loves. There's this whole idea, which I think might be a really screwed up idea, uh, that, the whole do what you love and the money will follow. And or the if you do what you love, then you will never work a day in your life. I mean, these really foolish kinds of toxic positivity, right? Because even if you are doing something you love, like writing, it's still hard work, and sometimes it really sucks, and sometimes it's miserable, and there's aspects of the business that are miserable and stressful. uh, and yeah, maybe some parts of it are joyful, and maybe it's better than doing a job that you loathe. I mean, I am immensely grateful that I get to have this job, that I'm making my living as a writer, and finally making a really decent living as a writer. And it's wonderful. I mean, it's great. Like, one of my favorite things is I don't have to be in meetings or conference calls about things that aren't interesting to me. It's like, that's really awesome. Um, but that doesn't mean that it's not hard work. So this idea that, like, oh, and you'll never work a day in your life, like, yeah, okay, no, that's not that's not how things work. But one of the things that happens when you take something that is a joy to you and you monetize it in some way, whether it's literally monetizing it, as like some book influencers are doing, or people who are doing merchandise based on, like being vendors for book events. You're taking something that you love, this joy in reading and in the books that you adore reading, and you're turning it into something that is, dare I say, work, that it is something that has deadlines and has stress. And if you attach making money and paying bills to that, it increases the stress. And it happens whether you're a creator of the writing, or if you are like out there reading. And so, like, even if you're not monetizing, even if you are, and we love you all, on a street team, or if you're a bookstagrammer or a book blogger and you just want to share the love, it still can become a thing that's about pressure. That this thing that was an escape from your life now becomes a thing that is, um, an expectation of your life. It becomes yet another task for the to-do list. Uh, I was talking with one of my besties, my local bestie Megan, about like trying to fit in time to see each other, because between my book travel and this all that stuff and her demanding job, we don't always see each other. And I told her about something I saw online about uh, young women planning to run errands together. Like, you have to go to the grocery store anyway. Why not go together? So far, we haven't done that. But it's this thing where our friendship is a joy to both of us. But then it also becomes something for the list. It's like, oh, I've got to, check this off of the list. And reading, I think for all of us, starts as an escape, right? You know, it was the book that you took and read in your bedroom or in the back room or out on the hammock or the beach in the summertime. And it was the time when nobody would bother you. You had no expectations, nothing that you were supposed to do. You could just go and escape, right? Escape into this other world and be other people and have these adventures. And that there's nothing like that, is there? That experience of deep reading where you forget who you are, you forget the stresses of your daily life. And so when you connect that to the stresses of your daily life, of like, oh, I have to read this book by this date, I have these responsibilities and I need to think about what am I going to rate it, and you know, will such and so be mad at me, and all of these things. And then at the same time, there's these other people in the world who are maybe don't love reading the way you do. uh, I've been encountering a few people like that recently who like tell me that they love romantasy and they just want to read more romantasy. And it turns out that actually they love Fourth Wing, or they love A Court of Thorns and Roses, and they actually don't want to read anything that's not that. And there's nothing wrong with that, but there is a certain um, glorying in the social milieu of reading a book that everybody else has read and adoring it. Uh, I'm trying to remember what book it was back in the day, like back before social media, really. Uh, there were some books that my colleagues were reading, and it might have been Black Dagger Brotherhood, something like that. And they'd found out that the new book had released and they were going to go to the bookstore. These two gals who worked together discovered a mutual love and that this book had just released, and they were going to go to the bookstore when we were done working for the day. And there was this great energy and excitement about the fact that they discovered they both liked that. And that's now on social media, and it's a great thing, but also it's not the same reason as maybe why I read a book or why you read a book, or why we want to tell people you have to read this book that I loved. You know, here, let me gift you a copy and then let me hover over your shoulder waiting for you to read it. Um, I don't know if I have a point there, except that maybe it's about recovering the joy of reading, you know, just that. Um, and I know that's kind of how I finished up on Wednesday, but I realized I had more things to say about it, because there are so many things in our lives where we have to pretend not to be impatient with our partners or our children, and we have to put a good face on things, and where we are responsible for other people and responsible for other things. And reading should be one of those things where we don't have to do that. So, hope you all have a wonderful weekend. I hope you get to have some deep reading time. And I will talk to you all on Monday. That's my plan. You all take care. Bye bye.